You're alone in the jet, not figuratively. There is one seat in an F-22 Raptor, and it's yours. And for the next several hours, whatever happens up there, you're the only one who can fix it. That's the part people miss when they talk about the F-22. They talk about the stealth, the speed, the fact that it can cruise past the sound barrier without even lighting the afterburner. What they don't talk about is what it costs the person strapped inside it to keep it up there for hours at a time with no one to hand the controls to and no way to simply step outside for a minute. So here's the real question. On a long mission, a patrol that stretches 4, 6, sometimes 8 hours with multiple aerial refuelings, what is actually happening to the body in that seat? It starts with the air itself. At altitude, the cabin doesn't hold enough oxygen to keep you conscious, so the jet manufactures your air as you fly, feeding it through a mask sealed to your face. Most of the time, it works exactly as designed. But between 2008 and 2011, F-22 pilots reported roughly a dozen incidents of what the Air Force called hypoxia-like symptoms. Dizziness, confusion, blackouts, the mind starting to fail before the body notices. By 2012, investigators had clocked the F-22's rate at over 26 physiological incidents per 100,000 flight hours, by far the highest of any aircraft in the fleet. The entire Raptor force was grounded for months, while engineers searched for a cause they never fully nailed down. You feel the second threat before you understand it. It's the G-suit, cinched tight around your legs and abdomen, squeezing blood back toward your brain every time you pull a hard turn. It works. It also traps heat, and by hour 2, your flight suit is soaked through, and the fatigue that builds under sustained G-loading is cumulative, not something a 5-minute breather fixes. Long sorties are known to cause headaches, tunnel vision, and a kind of cognitive fog that thickens the longer you stay strapped in. Major Chris Bandit Bergtolt, a Raptor pilot, has said that flying supersonic is simply part of the tactics, something every pilot trains to execute, more than once, on a single flight. Nobody in that seat gets to opt out of the physical bill that comes with it. Then there's the problem nobody puts on a recruiting poster. You're strapped into an ejection seat, wearing a mask, gloves, and a harness built for stability at 9 times the force of gravity, not for convenience. And at some point on a long mission, your body is going to ask for something the jet has no clean answer for. For decades, the only real option was a piddle pack, a bag pilots would try to use mid-flight while still flying the aircraft. It's harder than it sounds. A 2023 survey of Navy aviators found that nearly 93% of women flying missions up to 8 hours said they deliberately dehydrated themselves rather than deal with relief in the cockpit. Some pilots simply choose not to drink water for hours before a long flight, accepting a documented, measurable hit to reaction time and judgment rather than face the alternative. That's the trade a fighter pilot makes before the jet even leaves the ground. Hydrated and vulnerable, or dry and slower. There is no third option. There's no one else in the jet to spell you while you sort it out. That single fact, more than the top speed or the stealth coding, is what separates flying a Raptor from almost any other job on Earth. A truck driver pulls over, a surgeon scrubs out and hands off. A Raptor pilot, 6 hours into a patrol, decides between the two things that will slow the mind down and picks the one that seems survivable. By the back half of a long mission, the threat isn't dramatic anymore. It's quiet. Its attention narrowing down to one small problem while the bigger picture disappears. That's close to what happened to Captain Jeff Haney. On the night of November 16, 2010, the 31-year-old pilot, assigned to the 525th Fighter Squadron out of Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, was on a routine training flight over the Alaskan interior when his jet detected an air leak and automatically shut down his main oxygen supply. Gasping for air, Haney lowered the aircraft's altitude. Investigators later concluded he spent close to 50 seconds trying to restore airflow through his mask rather than reaching for the jet's manual backup system, a green ring mounted low near his seat, hard to find and harder to pull while wearing cold weather gear and fighting for breath. In that window, the aircraft rolled inverted. Haney couldn't recover it. He crashed in the Talkeetna Mountains and died. He left behind a wife and a record as one of the most skilled aviators in his squadron. The Air Force's official finding blamed Haney. The Pentagon's own Inspector General later disputed parts of that finding, saying the investigation's analysis wasn't fully supported by the facts. Either way, the Air Force changed the emergency oxygen handle across the entire fleet afterward. Whatever else is debated about that night, one thing isn't. A single-seat jet doesn't forgive a bad 10 seconds, and there was no one else in that cockpit to notice something was wrong. That's the piece of this job the spec sheet leaves out. The Raptor is built to fly faster and higher and more quietly than almost anything else the Air Force owns. But every one of those numbers assumes a person can keep functioning, hour after hour, inside a mask that has to work, a suit that has to fit, and a body that has to hold together with no backup crew and no relief in sight. So when you watch an F-22 climb out for a long patrol, the jet isn't the hard part. The jet was built for this. The person inside it is the one making 100 small trades the whole flight. Oxygen, hydration, fatigue, focus, betting each time that today isn't the day one of them adds up wrong. Was it worth it? Spending years training the body to absorb what the machine can't? Every pilot who's flown the Raptor for a decade or more would probably tell you yes, but they'd also tell you it never stopped being a bet.